Don't start another multi-season long TV show before you watch this video. You don't want to fall in love with a series, binge watch 6 seasons, only to get hit by a terrible and disappointing ending. To avoid that, I built this interactive chart where you can explore some of the best 250 TV shows based on the average rating of all their episodes versus the rating of the last 2 episodes, which I consider the show ending, which means that in the top right, you have great shows with great endings. Below, slightly lower rated shows, still good, that came in with a great ending. And in the middle, you have good shows with average ending. I also included the number of episodes and the time frame, so Seinfeld is from the past century, and then you have the link to the IMDb page. When you go to imdb.com, you find top 250 TV shows ranked by the show rating. Breaking Bad is number 1. And for the chart that I created, I excluded some mini-series, which are shows that only have a handful of episodes, because I was interested in how the last 2 episodes, the ending, compares to all of the other episodes. And if you click on the show, this overall rating based on 2.4 million respondents looks like this. You got 2 out of 3 people considering it a perfect show, 10 out of 10. I can agree with that. And then 19% give it a 9, which produces a 9.5 overall. However, when you look at the ratings for each episode, this heat map that you can also see on IMDb, only 1 out of the 62 episodes actually was a perfect 10. And this was the reason why I created this chart where I calculated the average of all individual episodes ratings and compare it to the last 2. And for Game of Thrones, you have 74 episodes. Overall, people think it's a 9.2. Again, over 2 million votes, ranked number 13. Over half of the votes also considered a 10. But then in the heat map, you can clearly see that season 8 dropped dramatically to some of the lowest ratings of all of the top 250. Another way you can show the progression of a show would be by episode number. I did that for Breaking Bad, where each season has its own color, and you can see that the episodes of season 1, 2, and 3 are rated from a 8.2 to a 9.3, but then during season 4 the episodes get better and better, and season 5 has a really high overall average, and then also some of the best last episodes are the last 4. And if you build the average of all of these episodes, Breaking Bad gives you an 8.96, and the last 2 come down to a 9.8. That's why this dot with 62 episodes is in the top right corner. The bigger the circle, the more episodes there are. For the regular show, you have 244, the X-Files 217, Adventure Time is here with 279, and Friends 235 episodes. Very strong ending, 9.55 compared to the overall show rating of 8.3. It's the average of all 235 episodes. So let's explore some of these. We also have an Indian show here from the 1980s with a great overall rating and a good ending. You find a few British shows, Faulty Towers, only 12 episodes in the 1970s. Coupling is here, also from the UK, which had a very bad 4th season, explaining the lower rated ending. That can be visualized with Boxplots, where season 1, 2, and 3 were great, and then season 4 lost one of the most funny actors and characters of the show. There's also a German production, 26 episodes, but over an hour long. Overall, each episode is rated an 8.9, so it won't disappoint, and the ending is strong with 9.5. Mr. Robot, I've never heard of, but you know that when you go into it, 45 episodes will be on average an 8.9, and another really strong ending. BoJack Horseman here. Animated shows, there are actually quite a lot of those that come in strong, with the highest endings being Avatar: The Last Airbender and Gravity Falls. Overall, best rated show Arcane, only 2 seasons, but finished now on Netflix with 18 episodes, and Attack on Titan 89, also animated show. For Game of Thrones, another way to show that would be the box plot again, where the first 7 seasons are some of the best TV ever made, but then season 8 had the 2 lowest rated episodes, and overall, even the best show was only as good as the lowest one in the seasons before. Same with Dexter, great enjoyable show, but the last season dropped quite a bit compared to the 7 seasons before, and then you also had the lowest rated episode of the entire show at the end, so quite disappointing to the fans. What was not disappointing was the ending of The Office. It's clear that after Michael left, the last 2 seasons were lower than the average, but the finale was actually great and had some of the highest rated episodes overall. I included TV audience rating, so you can filter for shows that are created for kids mostly. Opposite mature audience only, there's a filter as well. So here the language will be more age appropriate and the shows will show more violence. And then you have also shows for TV 14. Dr. House had 8 seasons, the last one on average below the other 7, but then the ending was quite strong again, so nothing to disappoint here if you go into that show. One of the reasons was I was just interested in shows that I watched growing up as a child or teenager and then in my 30s. How do those shows actually perform rating-wise? You can see that none of them is an 8.5 or above, but some of them actually got the ending quite right. Suits, then Scrubs, excluding the last season, had a really strong ending. Even Big Bang Theory, which dropped quite a lot after the first 6 seasons, produced a really good ending. And season 12, same for Prison Break. Boston Legal got a good ending in episode 101. Same for Monk, really good way to wrap up the story. But then you had How I Met Your Mother, where the last season was lower rated overall than the rest, and it had the highest rated episode from the perspective of the mother, how she met the father, but then the ending was just horrible. Which is different from Everwood, a show that I enjoyed as a teenager. It only had 4 seasons, but got better and better, and then finished really strong with the ending almost at a 9. And that was, I think, one of the earliest shows that had Chris Pratt as an actor. 2.5 Men, of course. You probably know the reason why. Once they switched from Charlie Sheen to Ashton Kutcher, the show just had a really low rating, and then the ending got even worse. So yeah, please let me know in the comments which TV shows you watched growing up, still watch on repeat, or are looking into to maybe watch in the future. I can add a whole filter for all the comment TV shows, and then you can explore them based on the ending without any spoilers, if it's worth getting into, if you remember them as they were when you watched them growing up. So yeah, just drop them in the comments below. And also, if you want to see more of these box plots, I could create an interactive app where you just select a show and then you see how it progresses over the seasons. There's another way how you can separate good from bad endings. That's called the Z-score, and it's a bit different from the episode rating. It's also known as the standard score, and you calculate it by subtracting the overall average rating from the episode rating and divide it by the standard deviation of all of the episodes, which means that it comes down to how many standard deviations an episode is better or worse than the average. Usually when your data is normally distributed, 95% of all ratings fall within -2 and +2 standard deviations, so a Z-score of -2 and +2. And when you filter for How I Met Your Mother episodes and create a histogram of all of the ratings, you find that the average is around 8 and that there were some really bad episodes, and you see that defined by their Z-score. The 4 lowest rated episodes all came from season 9, and the ending was a 2-part episode where the last one got the lowest rating, and that's a Z-score of -4.5. We can calculate the standard deviation. The mean and median is around a rating of 8 and the standard deviation is 0.59. So half a rating point is roughly 1 standard deviation, which means that the best rated episode, How Your Mother Met Me, 9.5, was roughly 3 standard deviations, 3 times 0.58 above the mean of 8 in this direction. And an episode of a Z-score of -4 is then 4 standard deviations away from the mean, which gets you a rating of 5.5, 5.8 over here. I did the same for Breaking Bad, which has fewer episodes and is not that normally distributed. You see the median and mean is almost a rating of 9. You remember season 1, 2, and 3 were around here, and then season 4 and 5 got the very high ratings in. Here you have the highest rated episodes. 3 out of 4 came from the last season with the perfect rating and then some 9.9s. Here the standard deviation is again 0.5, and there wasn't really a bad episode. The Fly came down to a 7.9 rating, 2 standard deviations below the mean. And I calculated the Z-score for all of the episodes and shows that I have in my dataset, and then calculated the average Z-score for the ending. So the last 2 episodes, for example, Everwood, very high Z-score. Of course, the mean of that show wasn't that high. It was only a 7.8, standard deviation 0.33, so most of the episodes were within 7.6 and 8.1, and then having final episodes at 8.9, 8.8, that's clearly above average with a Z-score of 3.5, 3.2. And then I repeated that for all of the shows to produce this chart. This is the source now only the top 250 from IMDb, and I focused on the top 20 and the bottom 10 based on the Z-score of the last 2 episodes. And then you can see that some of these got in a really solid ending where the last 2 episodes were 2 standard deviations above the mean. So when you start these shows, you won't be disappointed in the end. They finish up the stories quite well, other than these here in red that had the last episodes on average 4 or 5 standard deviations below the mean that they established in the seasons before. Nonetheless, still some of the best TV series produced, and maybe you can see beyond a bad ending. Lastly, I repeated this chart for the 30 shows that I selected from my list to see which one had better ending than expected and which was worse. Something that I could also do for the shows that you put in the comments, and then link to this chart or post it on X. The link to this interactive plot is of course in the description below. Let me know if you like this mix of pop culture and data analysis, subscribe to the channel, or come to my free Skool community to learn some of this exploratory data analysis. Do you want me to make such a chart for only animated TV shows or foreign productions? Just let me know in the comments, and see you here for the next video at the Data Digest.